as I am directed to do so, extirpate and exterminate them from the face of the whole earth, and that I will spare neither age, sex, nor condition, and that I will burn, hang, waste, boil, flay, strangle, bury alive these infamous heretics, open up the stomach and wombs of their women, and crush their infants' heads against the walls in order to annihilate their execrable race.
Yikes.
Yeah, that's the Jesuit.
That's the Jesuit oath. So that's what you're dealing
These
with
are
when you're dealing
zealots or nutcases.
with Jesuits.
Back to the oath. That when the same cannot be done openly, I will secretly use the poison cup, the strangulation cord, the steel of the poniard, or the leaden bullet, regardless of the honor, rank, dignity, or authority of the persons, whatever be their condition in life, either public or private, as I at any time may be directed to do so by any agent of the Pope or superior of the Brotherhood of the Holy Faith of the Society of Jesus. In other words, the Jesuits. Yeah.
These quotes from the Jesuit oath were entered into the congressional record. So, you can look that up if you want.
Right.
Go to our show notes. We'll give you the full details with the page numbers, and you can see for yourself that's a real oath.
Right. Okay, the Vatican has always had a Jesuit pope, in addition to the pope, the real popey pope, the head pope. I'm not sure which is the head pope, because I think the Jesuit pope has always been, more powerful. But anyway, today Pope Francis, whose real name is Jorge Bergoglio, he's a Jesuit. And he's also the head guy. He's also the head pope. So the black pope is in charge. And that man, at some point, took the oath that we just read. Now, let me give you a word about the Masons, or the Freemasons, that they're called. I'm basically from a Masonic family, and so is my wife. I've attended DMLA meetings, which is the junior league of the Masons. And I know that 98% of Masons that I know are honest, wonderful, hardworking people. My grandfather and Mindy's dad are Masons, and the salt of the earth. No better men ever existed. Few Masons even realize that there are many degrees above the third degree, which they're familiar. In other words, there's an organization on top of the Masons, from the third degree on up to the 33rd, which is the highest, which is used by the Illuminati to control our reality and funnel us into their total control dystopian nightmare. So most Masons that you know will just be great people, but they use it as a recruiting ground and a training ground for their psychopaths. Unfortunately, the organization was corrupted, and now the upper level serves as a recruitment and testing, I think they test for psychopathology, of possible new members of the Illuminati, Bilderbergers, CFR, Trilateral Commission, and other mafia organizations. Here's how it happened, and it happened to involve our old Jesuit buddy, Al Pike.
Old World Order infiltrates Masons and calls themselves the New World Order. By the mid-1800s, the Jesuits had infiltrated and taken over their arch-enemies, the Masons. The Jesuits set about with the purpose of disrupting and causing confusion in the Masons. In America, Jesuit Albert Pike promptly announced that the god of the Masons was Lucifer, turning the Masons 180 degrees in the opposite direction from which they came.
This is remarkable, because Pike essentially turned the Masons, a secret organization that had been guarding deeply held esoteric secrets from the time of Yahweh. I had even heard that Nimrod was the first Mason. He happened to be the mayor or the governor or the person in charge during the building of the Tower of Babel. So that's how old this Masonic secret society is. And Pike was able to turn it 180 degrees to serve Lucifer. Yeah, this guy was a real beauty. He was killing Protestants, turning them against the savages, which that's what he referred to the Indians as. Yeah, he was a real beauty, all right. But could he predict the future? Or was there some type of a planned maneuver to imprint this future on our minds? A future that would put the Jesuits in power over the whole world. Personally, I think he was an extreme insider and one of the architects of what the satanic Illuminati are wanting to call the New World Order. While still in linear time, there are other prophets, like Albert Pike, that were able to predict public events that were yet to be engineered into place by the congenitally psychopathic cabal. George Orwell is one of these insiders making predictions. His stuff is not just prediction, however. They are packaged in such a manner as to make them predictive programming.
You know, predictive programming's been going on ever since I can remember. It's done a lot of times through the entertainment industry and movies. Right. They'll show things that are expected to be played out in the future, so to get people used to seeing them and not question them.
I think all prophecies are predictive programming. You know, whether they're not meant to do that or not, but they would serve that purpose. Like there are a lot of people on the earth today that are expecting the second coming of Christ or some kind of judgment day. They're programmed to expect it. It's predictive programming. That's how they do it. Mm-hmm. Now, we were watching a movie by H.G. Wells the other night. It's a 1936 movie called Things to Come. Remember?
I do remember.
And in this movie, they laid out exactly how they intend to take over the whole planet. Here's how it starts. It starts off on a Christmas evening when people in England, where people are expecting war. And some people are more optimistic. They say, oh, no, that couldn't happen. Other people are really expecting it. But halfway through Christmas Eve, they go out and there's bombs being dropped close by. So you know the war begins. Well, time passes. A year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Finally, 25 years pass in this war. And there's not much left of civilization. Everybody's pretty much wiped everybody and everything off the earth. So people are banded together under like tribal warlords. And they're constantly fighting with one another. Then they look to the skies and they see a plane. Well, they haven't seen a plane in years because no one has the parts or the moxie to get together. So somebody comes in a plane, it might even be a lighter than aircraft, levitating in. And out steps this regal person. And he asks them if they would like to join his group and be part of this new world that is technologically advanced. Now, if you've listened to these podcasts at all, you know that we think that there's an advanced breakaway civilization that has a lot more technology than we do. So this could be a person coming back from this technically advanced cabal position as being a breakaway society with a lot of great technology, comes back and invites these people to join. Well, the leader doesn't want to join, but all the people want to join. And so when you join this New World Order, of course, you have to be civilized and conform. And you have to have the same thoughts that we have. You dress the same way. Everything is happy. Everything is wonderful because you're not free. And that's how, I think that's one image, predictive programming, and how this thing might roll out. If it were ever to roll out, and I really don't think it will. To get inside of the head of H.G. Wells a little bit, I have an interview here from Nancy Spinaus. She talks about H.G. Wells' influence on society.
And you look particularly at people like in the Fabian Society, people in the Coefficients Club like H.G. Wells and Bertrand Russell, Lord Bertrand Russell. And you see that they had a plan for reorganizing the world that would permit permanent control by their class, by Bertrand Russell's class. Wells was a commoner, but that would allow them to control through mind control, through drugs, through culture, the entire power over the universe. And they wrote about it quite openly. They said there was a faction around Ruskin in the late 19th century that openly said we want to go back to a new dark age. But these characters ostensibly wanted human progress, and they talked about human progress, but they actually wrote, and more than wrote, propagandized and manipulated a whole layer of culture and popular entertainment and drugs and all sorts of other artifacts which have shaped our culture today to create a kind of situation that we're facing now at the end of the 20th century. Recently again, and it's absolutely eerie that the ideas that were being written in 1896, 1913, 1933 are the ideas that people think they come up with by themselves. They think that they are for denying technology to the third world because something happened. It's not because of that. It's because these ideas were put into circulation. They've been surrounded by them in culture over this period.
Who really was H.G. Wells? I mean, most of our readers, our listeners, I'm sure, are familiar with his name.
He was I think he was a middle-class Briton who made a name for himself writing science fiction novels in the 1890s. One of them people in the United States became very familiar with in the late 1930s, called War of the Worlds, when it was broadcast on radio and people thought we were being invaded from Mars. He wrote quite grisly science fiction movies, and but then was picked up in a more serious way in the early part of the 20th century and began to write more what you would call scenarios. What we're going to look at today, this movie Things to Come, which Wells was involved personally in producing in 1933, came from a book that he wrote called Shape of Things to Come, which he did in earlier in the 30s, and was an attempt to rationally lay out how a one-world government would come into being. It flopped. I mean, one thing that Wells did is he made his money by writing, so he would write these long things that would be serialized and he would make money. But so in this case it was very long and it didn't work. So he did this, hooked up with a fellow here in the United States called Alex Corda, and fortunately the movie, which was shown in the late 1930s, it was done in 1936, is in the public domain, so we are able to actually take a look at sections of it, and people can begin to get the idea of what was set into motion here. Now, a couple other things about Wells. Those who do know him, conspiracy buffs and so forth, will know him as the man who wrote a whole one-world government manifesto in the early part of the century.
The open conspiracy.
Open conspiracy, yes. And this is soup to nuts. It's eliminate sovereign governments, population control, and all the way down the line. The second thing he did that is less well known, I believe, is in 1913 he wrote a monograph saying, well, mankind is developing a new technology, it's nuclear technology,